Yep, let's give them a hand as they come on up. So I'll have you guys introduce yourself.
I'm Vicky White. I wrote and directed the film. That's what I did.
I'm Bridget Stokes. I was the producer.
So as some of you know, maybe some of you don't know, reason we do these independent film screenings is for the producers and the directors and the filmmakers to share their story to inspire you guys to maybe make your own films and to kind of have them share their specific journey in this specific film to kind of give you guys a glimpse of what it takes to make films and everything that entails, the journey. So obviously we always start with story and script because that's where you have to start. So kind of talk about where the story came from and then how kind of that journey went into.
Sure. So Bridget and I were shooting her film, Herman and Shelley, and I was producing it. She directed it and wrote it, and I started to think about a film that I wanted to write and direct. And I had gone through a significant illness, and had a lot of changes in my physical life because of this illness. And so I started to think about what damaged goods really meant as far as like your physical being and who you were and emotionally how it connected you to the world and who you used to be. And so I met a lot of people through my illness that were feeling like they deserved less in life because they had been through an illness and they had had surgeries that took them to a different physical place. And so this is all very abstract, I realize. But ultimately, I wanted to kind of explore what it meant emotionally to go from being what you thought was a whole person to less than that, and those choices you make in life when you feel a little bit lost or a little bit damaged. So that's where it came from.
And that's a big story. So how do you guys go from, okay, that's a great idea, but how do we get words on paper and get kind of like a whole script going on?
Well,
I mean, our process has been to be very collaborative, and so Vicky had this idea and kind of came up with a full script and then brings me into the process, and we sort of workshop it and see how this story can really take shape as a narrative and as a feature film.
And we probably should back up a little bit. I realize, give them context of how you guys know each other, how you met, how long you guys been working together.
So Bridget and I met forever. We met at IFC Films. I have been in distribution for a millennium, and then went and was a consultant at IFC Films, and Bridget was working there, and we got put on these movies together that we had to basically bang out on Friday nights, make a lot of money, Saturday nights, make a lot of money, Sunday nights, make a lot of money, and then they were out of the theater by Monday, basically. I mean, it was like a 1 week lock in New York. And we had to open a series of maybe 7 films for IFC that they had a contract with. And so we did that together, and we had some success with it because we knew how to kind of grassroots the distribution. And we really liked each other, and then we went on to work at a company together thereafter, and then start a distribution company. And we decided distribution was not where our heart really was ever. And so then we just decided we'd start making movies.
Nice. And how many movies have you guys made together now?
We have made a handful of shorts and 2 features, and we're casting for our 3rd feature right now.
Nice. And so getting back to that script mode, did you wrote the first draft, and then was there multiple drafts after that? Kind of what was the draft process?
So I wrote the draft, and then I get it to a point where I feel comfortable like sending it to Bridget, and then Bridget will read it and then send me copious notes, and then we'll go through and see what's working and what's not working, and that happens over a period of time. And then we have 2 readers that read our stuff, and when we feel like it's ready to go to them, we send it to them. They give notes, and I think we trust their notes probably more than we trust anybody's, and so once they give us kind of their take on it, I decide if I'm going to keep that note or take that note or whatever, and then we argue about it or don't argue about it, and then the script is kind of done. But the volunteer was tough because it felt done like 3 times, and then I found a writer in Houston who's a novelist, and she's an amazing. She writes historical fiction. And these 900-page books, and I asked her if she would read it and help me understand if it was finished, and she read it and said, "You're missing a scene in this story," and the scene is in the movie. It's where she comes back out and finds the book on the step. She said, you need to add that so you can have a connection to him. And I thought that was brilliant, so we put that in there. And then she said, it's done, just go shoot it. So we did. So that was how we got to the point that we could shoot it.
I think there's a point in the writing process where probably any writer feels like you're so in your head and you've seen so many versions of this script that you no longer have good judgment. And we always get there, and then that's when you need fresh eyes.
How long was that process from first draft to kind of when you felt like you had locked script?
Maybe a year, yeah. Maybe a year. Maybe less than a year. Maybe 8 months-ish, yeah.
8 months to a year?
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know if norm is the right word, but do you guys feel like that's kind of like we're
Not
Ish.
lately.
We have a TV series we've been working on
For
for
2
several
years, yeah, 2 years, and then I wrote a script for Bridget to direct that was very quick, was like a
Yeah.
3-month, 8-month process, like all up and in, and then just adapted a book in like
Vicky's
3
getting very
months.
fast.
I'm getting really fast at this.
the more you do it, the
The
faster
more
you
you
get.
do it, the faster you get, it's true. It's like piano.
Then did you guys wait to start kind of the pre-production until lock of script, or did you kind of start working that process before? Kind of what was into the kind of pre-production mode for
No,
this
we locked the
project?
script. We were ready to roll. The script was locked, and then we went. Yeah, we were always kind of looking for people we wanted to work with, and we've always liked that process. You know, that's been like the fun process, but the script was locked before we made like major decisions.
And then what was your steps after lock script? Was it department heads? Was it raising a little money? Kind of talk to us about that.
It was casting our lead, our Leigh. That was a huge consideration for us, and we didn't want to try to put the other puzzle pieces in place before we knew who we were going to be working with. So that was the biggest chunk of time that we really carved out and said, let's figure this out before moving forward.
And so then reached out to a casting director and kind of went through that process, auditions.
We didn't do any auditions.
Great offers.
Just all
Straight
straight
offers.
offers on this movie. Yeah. Yeah.
Surprisingly, making an $85,000 movie does not give you a lot of clout.
Really?
Shocker. Spoiler alert.
Who knew?
Yeah.
And so then obviously straight to offers, and then did that make you guys nervous? Because you're like,
Super nervous.
yeah, you'd never read this person.
Yeah.
How's that going to work?
But you know, what we did, we decided like all the people we ever wanted to work with in our lives, like if you know we were all going to die like 6 weeks after this film was finished, like we wanted to work with these people. So our casting director loved the movie and loved the script. So she said she was never like fearful about sending it out to any of these major people. So she did that for us, and she kind of really got behind the movie.
And so then you cast your lead actress, and then kind of what keep us going through that kind of process? What was after that? Was it then?
Then we were casting until the 2 days before we started shooting.
Yes, the 2 days before.
Nice.
No, once we got our lead, and she's so phenomenal, and we love her, and she's in our next film. It became a lot easier because people wanted to work with her, and we got a really good ensemble cast. But we were making offers up until, because at some point you have to say, well, we're going on this day. So, I think our last major casting decision was a couple weeks before we started shooting.
We also had kind of a yes from somebody, and then the yes became a no, like 2 days before. So we were like, what do we do? And then somebody who read it was like, yeah, I will do it. I'm free. I would like to do it. And so it worked out.
How long did you have from lock script to your first day of shooting? About how long was that?
7 months.
No, wait from lock script to shooting?
Like our casting process?
Yeah, casting took a long time. Yeah. Because we had to wait, like, we'd make an offer and then we'd wait like a bazillion weeks to hear back, and we couldn't cast anybody until we cast our lead, and that became kind of everything was contingent upon her.
So you guys said about 8 months was about roughly the process, and you guys were obviously crewing up and doing all the other stuff that it requires of pre-production. So is it for that crew component? Was it people that you had already worked with before, and you have a team, or was it a lot of new people?
We had people who came back that we just loved and wanted to work with again, and then a lot of people who we had worked with, if they weren't available, would have really good recommendations. So it was a pretty, I don't want to say easy, but it's easier than casting, finding our crew. Yeah.
And then for our actors in the room, what for those auditions, what sparkles for you? What makes you go, yes, this person, or no, this person, or what kind of resonates with you in the audition room?
Well, this is interesting because we're just going through this now with our next movie, and I think for us, it's really about the tone of the read. We're finding that when we send out, sides and we get these reads back that are taped, everyone has a very particular read on what we've sent. And sometimes most of the time it's not on, but there's an occasional, yes, that's it. But what is confusing for somebody who's casting, I think, is that moment where you're like, yes, they got the tone. It's just a crapshoot. Like, you didn't get to talk to this person about the script and they didn't get to read the entire script. So I think that part has been kind of confusing for us because we're working with this great casting director, and she said everyone that we want to give notes to, because then we can like them more, or like them less, or whatever that would be. But I think, if you can, God, it's so hard to figure out from the sides what the tone of like the actual whole film is. But that's something. If there's any, tidbit in there.
Yeah, I think that's why a great casting director who you trust and really enjoy working with is so important, because our casting director has just had these insights into people that we didn't see at first glance. And if you're getting videotapes of people, it's hard. It's hard to see the sparkle because it's remote and it's removed. Yeah. And she has really been great in saying, well, what if we try to give them these notes and see what else they can come up with.
I would also say like that some of the people that we've seen have done really odd auditions, and so you never click off those people. You want to watch them all the way through the end. And I'm not encouraging everybody to do a bunch of odd auditions, but like I thought that was kind of a different, interesting take on what we had written. So we were like, we'll see all this all the way through just to see what's there.
Their unique interpretation of whatever that material was.
Yeah, and it's so far removed from any tone we've written. Like, I mean, it's not in any way a part of the audition. Like, it shouldn't even be, it's nothing related to it, but it's enough to keep our attention. So I think there is something to that, I do believe.
So you're quickly coming upon your shoot dates. Did you guys, the saying goes, pick the shoot date because then everything kind of falls into place from there. So did you guys, was there just like, we're going to pick a date and go, or was there specific reasons with your dates? Kind of what was the process behind it? This is when we're going to go.
We picked the summer. We both have families and children, and so we wanted to do it in the summer when our husbands were basically available to take care of our kids. And our beautiful, wonderful lead, she had a conflict, and the dates that we had chosen, and everybody was already set up, and everybody, like cinematographer, everybody, and then there was a conflict. And so we were able to work around that conflict and still work with Ingenue, and it all worked out. But we picked the dates, and we had to move the dates slightly, but not to, it didn't ruin anything, so we were able to go about 3 weeks later. Yeah.
And how many days of shooting?
18 days.
18 days, and then where'd you guys shoot at? What were your locations?
Stamford, Connecticut. Beautiful Stamford.
What's the reason behind that? Was there connections to locations? Were you from there? Everything for free? How did that work out?
At the time I was living there. We shot our first feature there, and it's nothing like shooting in LA where everybody's over it. In Stamford, Connecticut, they're very excited about a feature film being there. They're happy to invite you into their bar to shoot for free, and the local library is happy for you to come in. So it was a really great experience shooting there. It saved us a ton of money, but it also got us our first fans, and really we had a whole community behind us. And we talked about shooting in Texas and maybe some other places, but it really was a good fit to shoot there again because it was so welcoming and it was such a good place to shoot.
And in this, we had about 80 extras on any given day, and so many people would show up and just hang out all day. And I don't know if you guys like the extras, but we loved our extras, and none of them had any acting experience. They were just locals in Stamford, and they just came out, hung out all day, ate pizza. It was the best. They were amazing.
Sometimes we hear filmmakers saying they have struggling with extras returning, and so the consistency issues and things like that with shooting. Do you guys sound like you guys didn't have that problem?
Our extras are still emailing us.
They emailed us yesterday. 2 of them emailed us yesterday. They're amazing.
Calling us. Yeah.
So if you need extras, I guess Stamford, Connecticut is the place to go.
Shoot movies there. Yeah. You're not going to be able to afford to live there, but you can shoot movies there.
Did you guys so you were living there? What was your home base at?
I live in Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that. That's kind of How did that, like, you were definitely far away. You were maybe
Yeah.
at location, so you could help with that, but how was that process like?
It was fine. I think we did okay.
It worked out.
Yeah. I flew up some, and
Yeah.
I got there early. Yeah, it was okay.
We
It worked
shot a
out.
lot of stuff right around where it was quick for me
Yeah.
to just look at locations and
And we had already shot a movie there, so that was the other thing. Like,
Right.
I think, I mean, if we only could shoot in Stanford from now on, we could probably make it work. But we don't want to. We want to shoot in other places.
And there were a lot of people traveling from New York up there, or were they kind of from all over?
All of our crew, not all, but most of our crew came from New York, and lots of our actors came from New York. We had some from LA. Scott was from LA.
we had a
Hill
couple
was from
people.
LA.
Yeah.
But other than that, everybody was from New York.
The other thing about Stanford is it's within the zone where people can come from New York. You don't have to it's like a whole thing. So there's TV productions. Are we there yet? Stuff goes on in Stanford. They have a little bit of a film thing going on.
It's a thriving film metropolis.
It's a semi-thriving.
But nobody lives there because it's just too expensive. It's the most expensive city in the country, FYI.
This is a chance where we always ask about, give us the kind of behind the scenes glimpse, what happened that we don't know, that just by seeing the movie, the dog stopped barking, the police officer gave you 5 extra minutes to shoot something. Kind of what was your stories of the behind the scenes of this film?
Okay.
There is there's a guy in Stanford. He takes his job very seriously, and he is kind of in charge of permitting and locations for Stanford. And we had gotten a bunch of permits from him, and we were all on the up and up. But on the second to last day of shooting, he decided we were using too much of a sidewalk, and he said, this whole day shoot that you have, you got to get it in an hour. And so it was really complicated. We had to really rework the entire day and figure out how we're going to, we were almost done shooting, and we had to figure out how to get it. But you just get very creative. But it was stressful.
We also, that scene where they're under the, in the park where it's raining and they're having that conversation, it was not meant to be raining that day. And we went and we were going to shoot that, and it was going to be this quiet, lovely moment, not undercover. And next thing you know, it's this torrential downpour, but we needed to shoot that so we could get somewhere else later in the day. And we had to do it. And so all of that thunder and everything you hear is all natural things that were happening, and those reactions that, Eben makes when he's like, we're going to be here for a while, that kind of stuff, like that was him doing that because that was thunder happening at that moment. But the best part about that scene for us is that, it was like a 12 by 12 square, and the actors are, look like they're in this luxurious like space, but we are, at any given time, just all right behind them, like
right
sitting
there.
like, and I can't really hear anything, and it was hell for sound in post, but we thought it worked out. We liked that scene a lot.
As producers, we were just talking backstage about you guys are the ultimate improv artists, directors as well, in the sense of you have a plan to shoot and the rain causes you to do other stuff. How do you keep your composure? How do you make it work? How do you not, just throw it all in and quit?
Well, okay, so I think we both think that producers are the unsung heroes of most movies. The director gets all the credit, the writers get all the credit, but the producers are really like killing it every day to try to get everything like pieced together and make sure everyone is happy all the time. And we had a number of things happen where, things were a bit expensive to shoot at the train tracks, and we were going to shoot on the street, but it wasn't going to be as cinematic. And so Bridget would have to like really hammer through with our line producer how to get it affordable and how to, get people out there that needed to be out there when we were out there, and how many people could be on the track. It was just really complicated. But I think for us, it's just lists. It's just constant lists and constantly putting out fires.
Well, the cool thing is that we check in every night with each other. I think all directors have a person, and for some it's their AD, and for some it's their DP, and Vicki and I have each other, and we check in every night, and we talk probably longer than we should, and we figure out how we're going to make it through the next day, and it's nice. It's because we have each other, I think.
Oh.
Now I feel like a jerk for what I said.
Selfish.
Let's talk a little bit about post-production. What ways did you guys set yourself up well for post-production? Was there ways that maybe you're like, oh, we wish we'd have done this a little differently to help for post-production?
So we always budget for everything. So we come from a distribution background where we used to distribute filmmakers' movies. We used to do what's called a service deal, where you would pay us to like put a movie in 20, 50, 100 markets. And inevitably what would happen was somebody would make their movie and then they would have no money to distribute it. And they would then they would try to raise money again to come to somebody like us and put it in all these markets. And what we recognized when we were putting our budget together was that number needs to be in there. And so the same is true for post, because I think a lot of people think, like, let's just get through it and then we'll just see what happens, man. We'll be able to raise it because the footage will be so good. And then half the time you're like, oh, the footage is not color corrected. And you cannot sell anybody, I think, on a not color corrected shoot. You can't. Sound mix, you've got to really like give it your best, give it your all when you're trying to raise money. So we found that budgeting everything in there, all the contingencies, everything was the right thing to do. So when we were raising money at the beginning, having those numbers there were key for us. And so that was really the number one thing. And then with editing, we hired an editor kind of before we started shooting the movie, so she could understand what was coming. And do you want to talk about that process?
Well, I mean, just to speak more to post, Vic found an amazing post house, and I think what was so great about it was they were in Austin, Texas, and not in New York or LA. And they had done all Linklatter's films, and they were just 3 people. 2 of them were married, and they were in this tiny little office, and they did such a great job, and were so devoted to our film, no matter what size it was. So,
and they also gave us like usually they'll do sound and color over 3 weeks, or you can take months to do it, but usually theirs was like a 3-week thing. We asked for the 10-day discount, and so they gave it to us. They said, yeah, we'll do it for 10 days and we'll prorate it. That's fine. They were just really annoyed by the whole thing, but they were amazing, and they did as much work as they would have on anybody's film. So, yeah.
And then, so I heard you plan for festivals. What does that mean for you guys? What does plan for festivals mean for you guys? Whereas like you had certain goals, certain things you like, places, or you're just like these top 5?
I think it means something different with each film. Yeah. I really think it depends on the film, and for this film, we could see pretty early on that it had a little life, and specifically because our lead is African American, we applied to the Pan-African Film Festival and Urban World, and it was received exceptionally well at those festivals. So we found it sort of niche for it. We won the Best Narrative Feature at Urban World, and yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on what the film is and who the audience is, and I think we know a little bit more about the festival world with each go-round, so.
And we have friends that make short films and make features, and they submit to 150 festivals because they put that in their budget somewhere. They decide they're going to just like suck it up and charge it. But they want those laurels on their poster, and they want to be able to like somebody click on their website and see the laurels. And it doesn't matter if it's like the Tomball, Texas Festival of, Insanity. They just want they want a laurel on there. And so you have to decide what you really need, like in your heart, for this experience, because it's disheartening. The whole festival circuit deal is pretty disheartening. So you have to decide what will make you happy and then try to go for that. And then you kind of have to be okay when it doesn't work out and just kind of move on, because it does. I think people dwell on that whole festival thing a little bit more than they should, when there are outlets for distribution and there are ways to get your film seen and get yourself out there other than that, because there is it's a network that you have to kind of like cultivate relationships, and really, for Sundance and everything else, you have to really know people sometimes, most of the time, to get into those festivals. It's not just a big giant crapshoot like, oh, my film's so great, it's going to get in. It really doesn't work that way, sadly.
No, I think that's good to hear, because I think, and I resonate with the idea of what film festival has the audience that's going to resonate with your film, because I think that goes back to when you're even writing and creating the film, who's the audience, who's going to be interested in this film, and I think that's the through line. I want to say thank you guys for sharing your stories. I think it's amazing, and thank you. Any film that gets done is an amazing journey and process, and we usually wrap up with, we'll go writer, director, and then producers. Like, for our audience who's thinking about doing their first one, what's your advice as a writer, director, and then what's your guys' advice as producers? Is like, this is your first feature, this is what, if anything, remember this.
Bridget is also a writer-director, so she also needs to give this advice.
Yes, so all the way around.
So I would say as a writer-director, I would say just don't give up. There's no reason to give up. Like you can just, but okay, don't give up your day job. Like I never gave up my day job. You can't give up that, but don't give up writing. Don't give up trying to make films, and make them at a micro budget level, because you, like anything else, like it's practicing your piano or whatever when you were a kid, you'll get better and better and better as you do it more and more and more. And it is a pain to get out there and do it. It is a pain. But you just have to get out there and do it. That was the best advice I ever got. And I got it from a filmmaker. And that's what maybe made my first, short film. And we're by no means any great shakes, but we're going to keep on going. And we're not stopping. I mean, we're going to be 100 years old and still making movies. And they're going to be just as good as this one. Better. Ingenue will be in all of them.
She will be.
Yeah, so you need to say.
Writer and director, Bridget, what's your perspective on first-time writers, directors?
I think my advice would be there are so many places where you say, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why did I choose this? Should I give up? And I think just going beyond that and saying, no, I have to keep pushing. Just keep pushing through it. I think we're making it sound like drudgery, but there's so many highs, but I think the idea is pushing through the lows. And then something we just discussed at dinner actually is we came from the distribution world, so I think, we had both always wanted to be in production, and once we were finally making films, I think we had a little bit of a feeling like we shouldn't have to do distribution anymore. But it's like, no, there's no point at which you stop. Nobody's going to care about your film more than you care about it. And you have to see it through to the end, which is never. You're with it for life in some ways. But I think, owning that and sort of being excited about that and continuing to be enthusiastic about all the parts has been a really valuable thing for us.
I think you guys just talked about what a producer needs to be as well. So I think you guys just wrapped it up in a nice little bow there. So let's end on that and give them a hand.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks you
so
guys for
much.
coming and staying and listening.
Thank you guys for coming out.